A wealthy man wrongfully fires his maid after getting her pregnant. Years later, their son discovers the truth and urges his mother to get compensation for the hardship she was put through. Maria Lopez moved silently through the spacious living room of Jonathan Clark's mansion, her cleaning cloth running over the polished surfaces. The room smelled of lemon polish and fresh flowers, a scent she had come to associate with this place. Jonathan's voice drifted down the hallway, muffled and indistinct. He was on the phone, speaking in his usual confident tone. Maria's heart tightened, an involuntary reaction that she couldn't suppress. She hadn't spoken to him directly in weeks, not since the day she told him she was pregnant. That conversation replayed in her mind often, his cold words etched into her memory. "We can't have this," he had said, pacing his office while Maria stood frozen. "It would ruin everything. My family, my reputation. I'll pay you, but you have to leave." But the money never came. Her hands paused on the mahogany table. The sound of Jonathan's approaching footsteps snapped her back to the present. Maria quickly resumed her dusting, her movements more mechanical now, her eyes downcast. Jonathan entered the room, still talking on the phone, not sparing her a glance. He walked past her as if she were part of the furniture. "That's right. We need to finalize those contracts by Friday," Jonathan said into the phone, his voice fading as he walked down the hallway. The sound of a door closing signaled his retreat into his office. Maria exhaled slowly, relief mixing with frustration. She finished her task quickly, eager to leave the mansion and the memories it held. Now, 15 years later, Maria stood in her small kitchen, the sound of sizzling onions filling the air. The kitchen was tiny, the countertops cluttered with dishes and grocery bags. She worked quickly, slicing vegetables and stirring a pot on the stove, her movements efficient. The scent of garlic and tomato sauce mingled, replacing the distant memory of lemon polish in Jonathan's voice. Her son Gabriel, now 15, sat at the kitchen table, his head bent over a school book. His dark hair flopped over his forehead as he scribbled notes. Maria glanced over at him, a wave of love and worry washing over her. He looked so much like Jonathan, with his sharp features and serious expression, though Gabriel's eyes held a warmth that Jonathan's never had. "Hey, Mom," he greeted without looking up. "Hi, sweetheart," Maria replied, forcing a smile. She set her bag down and began to prepare dinner. The kitchen was tiny, the countertops cluttered with dishes and grocery bags. Maria worked quickly, slicing vegetables and stirring a pot on the stove, her movements efficient. Gabriel watched her from his spot at the table. At 15, he was tall and thin, with his mother's dark eyes and thick hair. His gaze was sharp, always observing, always questioning. Tonight, his expression was more serious than usual. "Mom, can we talk?" Gabriel asked, his voice cutting through the quiet. Maria's hand stilled on the knife. She glanced at him, reading the unease in his eyes. "Of course," she said cautiously. "What is it?" Gabriel reached into his backpack and pulled out a photograph. He slid it across the table. Maria's breath caught in her throat when she saw it, a picture of her and Jonathan, taken years ago at a party. She remembered the night clearly, how carefree they had been, how safe she had felt in his arms. The sight of the photograph now felt like a punch to the gut. "Where did you find this?" Maria asked, her voice tight. "In one of your old boxes," Gabriel said, his tone probing. "I was looking for some old family pictures for a school project. Mom, is he my father?" Maria's shoulders slumped. She had hoped to keep this secret forever, to protect Gabriel from the truth of his father's abandonment. But now, with the photo staring up at her, the truth seemed unavoidable. "Yes," Maria admitted softly. "Jonathan Clark is your father." Gabriel's eyes widened, a mix of anger and betrayal flickering across his face. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep this from me?" "Because I didn't want you to get hurt," Maria said, her voice breaking. "Jonathan, he didn't want us. When I told him I was pregnant, he fired me. He refused to support us." Gabriel stood up, pushing his chair back with a scrape. "So, all these years, he just ignored us? Pretended we didn't exist?" Maria nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I tried to reach out to him, but he never responded. I didn't want you to grow up feeling rejected." Gabriel's fist clenched at his sides. "That's not fair. He should be responsible. He can't just get away with this." Maria shook her head. "I've tried to move on. I've worked hard to take care of us. I didn't want you to feel like you needed him. But I do," Gabriel said, his voice firm. "I need to know who he is, and he needs to acknowledge me. You shouldn't have had to do this alone." Maria looked at her son, seeing the determination in his eyes. He was so much like her, strong-willed and resilient. She realized that Gabriel's need for justice mirrored her own buried desires. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. "Okay," Maria said quietly. "We'll do something about it. I'll find a lawyer." We'll make him take responsibility. Gabriel's expression softened, his anger giving way to gratitude. Thank you, Mom. As they sat down to eat dinner, a new resolve filled the room. The secret that had been buried for so long was now out in the open, and there was no going back. Maria felt a strange sense of relief, knowing that they would face this challenge together. Maria sat on the worn-out couch in the living room, her hands resting in her lap. The faded fabric was comfortable under her fingers, familiar and safe. She watched Gabriel pace back and forth across the small space, his hands running through his hair. He had inherited that nervous habit from her. The silence between them was thick, filled with unspoken questions. Gabriel stopped pacing and turned to face her. Why didn't you ever tell me about him? He asked, his voice low but insistent. I've been asking about my dad for years, and you always said he was gone, that he didn't want anything to do with us. Why? Maria looked at her son, seeing the pain and confusion in his eyes. She had spent years trying to shield him from the harsh truth, thinking it was the best way to protect him. Now that decision felt like a mistake. I thought it was better if you didn't know, Maria said softly. I wanted you to have a normal life, without the pain of knowing that your father, that he didn't want to be part of it. Gabriel's jaw tightened. But I had a right to know, Mom. He's my father. He should have been there for me. You should have let me decide how to feel about him, not keep it a secret. Maria sighed, her shoulders slumping under the weight of his words. I know, maybe I was wrong to hide it from you, but I didn't want you to feel rejected, to think you weren't good enough. I was just trying to protect you. Gabriel crossed his arms, his eyes fixed on the floor. You did everything alone, he said, his voice softer now. You worked so hard and I never understood why you were always so tired, why you had to take all those jobs. It's because of him, isn't it? Maria nodded, feeling a lump rise in her throat. Yes, after he fired me, I had to find other work. It wasn't easy, but I did what I had to do to take care of us. Did you ever try to reach out to him? Gabriel asked, his voice tinged with curiosity and hurt. A few times, Maria admitted. I wrote letters, tried calling his office, but he never responded. It was like we didn't exist to him. Eventually I gave up. I couldn't keep wasting my energy on someone who didn't care. Gabriel's expression hardened again. That's not fair. He can't just ignore us like that. He's my father, and he should take responsibility for what he did. Maria looked at her son, feeling a mix of pride and sorrow. Gabriel had always been strong-willed, just like her. She knew he wouldn't let this go easily. What do you want to do, Gabriel? She asked quietly. How do you want to handle this? Gabriel sat down beside her, his face serious. We need to confront him. He needs to know that he can't just walk away from us. I want to meet him, talk to him, and I want him to pay for what he did to you, to us. Maria hesitated, the idea of confronting Jonathan filling her with anxiety. But she could see that Gabriel was determined, and she couldn't deny him the chance to face his father. Maybe it was time to stop running from the past. All right, Maria said slowly. If this is what you want, I'll help you. I'll find a lawyer, someone who can guide us through this. But you need to be prepared, Gabriel. This won't be easy. Jonathan, he's powerful, and he'll do everything he can to avoid responsibility. Gabriel nodded, his eyes shining with a mix of anger and hope. I know it won't be easy, but I don't care. I need to do this. For us, he can't keep pretending we don't exist. Maria reached out and pulled Gabriel into a hug. He hugged her back tightly, and for a moment, she felt the weight of the years of struggle lift from her shoulders. They were in this together now, and that made the future seem a little less daunting. As they pulled apart, Maria looked at her son and smiled faintly. We'll start tomorrow, she said. I'll find a lawyer who can help us. We'll make Jonathan face the truth. Gabriel returned her smile, his expression softening. Thank you, Mom, he said quietly, for everything. Maria nodded, feeling a new sense of resolve take root inside her. For years, she had been afraid to confront the man who had caused her so much pain. But now, with Gabriel by her side, she felt stronger. It was time to stop hiding and start fighting for what they deserved. The evening passed with an unusual sense of calm. Maria made dinner, and they ate together in the small kitchen, their conversation lighter now. But underneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of determination, a shared understanding that their lives were about to change. As Maria washed the dishes, she glanced at Gabriel, who was back at the table, reading a book. She thought about the years she had spent protecting him from the truth, trying to shield him from pain. Maybe it had been the wrong approach, but now they were facing reality together. And for the first time in a long while, Maria felt hopeful. After dinner, Gabriel headed to his room, leaving Maria alone with her thoughts. She sat on the couch looking at the photograph of her and Jonathan that Gabriel had found. It was an old photo, the edges worn from handling. Maria studied Jonathan's face, his easy smile, and the way his arm was casually draped over her shoulders. How different things had been then, before the betrayal, before the loneliness. Maria placed the photo back in the box and closed the lid. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now she allowed herself a moment of peace. Maria turned off the lights and headed to bed, her heart lighter than it had been in years. They were taking control of their future, and no matter what happened, they would face it together. Maria adjusted the collar of her blouse as she stood in front of a plain gray door with a brass plaque that read, Linda Parks, Attorney at Law. The small law office was tucked away in a quiet part of the city, far from the glass towers and busy streets where Jonathan worked. Maria felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. This was the first step towards facing him, and even though she had resolved to do it, the fear was still there, lurking just beneath the surface. She turned to Gabriel, who stood beside her, his face set with determination. "Are you ready?" Maria asked softly. Gabriel nodded. "Yeah, Mom, we've got this." Maria took a deep breath and opened the door. Inside, the office was small but welcoming. A woman in her mid-40s sat behind a cluttered desk. She looked up as they entered, offering a warm smile. "You must be Maria and Gabriel," the woman said, standing up and extending her hand. "I'm Linda Parks. Please come in. Have a seat." Maria shook Linda's hand, feeling the strength in her grip. Gabriel did the same before they both sat down in front of Linda's desk. The office was filled with books and stacks of legal papers, giving it a busy but organized feel. Linda sat down and folded her hands on the desk, her eyes focused on Maria. "I read the brief details you gave over the phone," she said, "but I'd like to hear everything from the beginning, in your own words. Take your time." Maria glanced at Gabriel, then back at Linda. She took another deep breath and began to speak. "I used to work for Jonathan Clark as a maid," Maria said. "About 16 years ago, we had an affair. When I found out I was pregnant with Gabriel, I told Jonathan. He didn't take it well." "What did he say?" Linda asked, her voice calm but her eyes sharp. Maria hesitated, remembering the coldness in Jonathan's voice that day. "He said that having a child would ruin everything, his family, his reputation. He offered to pay me to go away quietly. I refused. I thought maybe he'd change his mind, that he'd accept responsibility. Instead, he fired me. No severance, no support, nothing." Gabriel's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent, letting Maria continue. "I wrote to him, called him, but he never responded. I was left to raise Gabriel on my own. I took whatever jobs I could find, just to keep a roof over our heads." Linda nodded, jotting down notes on a legal pad. "And you're looking to file a lawsuit for child support and wrongful termination?" "Yes," Maria said, her voice firmer now. "Jonathan has ignored us for too long. Gabriel deserves to know his father, and Jonathan should be held accountable for what he did." Linda set down her pen and leaned forward. "This is a strong case, Maria. We can sue for child support based on Jonathan's income, which I'm sure is substantial. The wrongful termination angle is also solid given the circumstances of your firing. We'll need to gather evidence. Any letters, records, or witnesses who can support your story." Maria nodded. "I have a few letters I kept from when I tried to reach out to him, and some of the other staff from his house. They might be willing to talk. They knew about us, even if it wasn't openly discussed." "Good," Linda said. "We'll start by filing the suit and subpoenaing Jonathan's financial records. Once we have a court date, we'll prepare you both for the kind of questions you might face. These cases can get personal, and Jonathan's lawyers will try to discredit you. You need to be ready for that." Gabriel, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "What about him? Can he try to make us look bad?" Linda looked at Gabriel, expression serious. "He'll try, but the truth is on your side. We'll focus on Jonathan's actions, his affair, his refusal to support you, and his wrongful termination of Maria's employment. Public opinion will play a big role once the media gets wind of this. Jonathan's reputation is his weak point. We'll use that to our advantage." Maria felt a flicker of hope at Linda's confidence. "What should we do next?" "I'll start drafting the lawsuit," Linda said. In the meantime, gather any evidence you have, letters, records, anything that proves your employment and the affair. We'll need to build a strong case from the start. I'll also begin reaching out to any potential witnesses." Maria nodded, her mind racing with thoughts of who might be willing to help. She knew some of the former maids might still be in contact, and maybe even a few of Jonathan's associates who had known about their relationship. Linda stood up, signaling the end of their meeting. "I'll be in touch soon with the next steps. We're starting a fight, but it's a fight we can win. Just remember, it won't be easy. Jonathan will try to use his power and money to intimidate us, but we won't back down." Gabriel stood and extended his hand to Linda, his grip firm. "Thank you, Miss Parks. We're ready to do whatever it takes." Maria followed Gabriel's lead, shaking Linda's hand. "Thank you, Linda. We appreciate your help more than you know." Linda smiled. I believe in justice, Maria, and I believe in standing up for what's right. We'll make sure Jonathan Clark faces the truth. As they left the office, Maria felt a strange mix of fear and relief. The reality of what they were about to do was sinking in. This wasn't just about Gabriel anymore. It was about her too. It was about reclaiming her dignity and standing up against the man who had wronged her. Outside, the sun was shining brightly, the city alive with the sounds of people going about their day. Maria and Gabriel walked side by side, the weight of their decision heavy but shared. "Do you think we'll win?" Gabriel asked, breaking the silence. Maria looked at him, seeing the determination in his eyes. "I don't know what will happen, Gabriel, but I do know this. We're not alone anymore. And that's a start." Gabriel nodded, his expression softening. "I'm proud of you, Mom." Maria smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I'm proud of us both. No matter what happens, we're doing this together." They continued down the street, moving forward with purpose. The fight ahead was daunting, but for the first time in a long time, Maria felt like she had a chance. They were taking control of their story, and that was a victory in itself. Maria stood at the kitchen sink, her hands immersed in soapy water, washing the dinner dishes. The window above the sink framed a view of the city's skyline, glowing with the lights of office buildings and apartments. She tried to lose herself in the rhythm of the task, but her mind kept drifting back to the meeting with Linda Parks. The decision to file the lawsuit was like a heavy weight pressing down on her, a mix of hope and fear. It felt like stepping off a cliff into the unknown. The sudden ring of the phone shattered her thoughts. Maria dried her hands quickly and reached for the phone on the counter. "Hello? Maria, it's Linda." The lawyer's voice was brisk, but Maria detected a note of urgency. "I need you to be prepared. The lawsuit was filed today, and it's already attracting media attention. Reporters might start showing up at your apartment or Gabriel's school. I'm sorry, but this is the nature of cases like this, when they involve someone that is high profile as Jonathan Clark." Maria's stomach tightened. "I didn't think it would happen so fast," she said, her voice shaky. "What should I do?" "Stay calm," Linda advised. "Don't talk to any reporters. Refer them to me if they contact you. We need to control the narrative as much as possible. I'll be issuing a statement on your behalf. It will focus on the facts, your wrongful termination, Jonathan's refusal to support his son, nothing more. Just stay strong, Maria. This will pass." Maria nodded, even though Linda couldn't see her. "Thank you. I'll be careful." After hanging up, Maria stood still for a moment, trying to process what was happening. The media attention was something she hadn't fully prepared for. The idea of reporters outside her door, cameras in her face, filled her with dread. She didn't want to be a spectacle. She just wanted justice for Gabriel and herself. As if on cue, there was a knock on the apartment door. Maria's heart skipped a beat. She walked slowly to the door and peered through the peephole. Two people stood outside, one holding a microphone, the other a camera slung over his shoulder. Reporters. "Maria Lopez?" the woman called out, her voice muffled through the door. "We're with the City News Network. We'd like to ask you a few questions about your lawsuit against Jonathan Clark." Maria's hand trembled as she tightened her grip on the doorknob. She took a deep breath, then spoke through the closed door. "No comment. Please leave." "Maria, this is your chance to tell your side of the story," the reporter persisted. "Jonathan Clark has a lot of influence in this city. Don't you want people to hear what you have to say?" "I said no comment," Maria repeated, her voice firmer. She waited until she heard the footsteps retreating down the hallway before she stepped back, letting out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Gabriel emerged from his room, sensing the tension. "Who was that?" "Reporters," Maria said, trying to keep her voice steady. "They wanted to ask about the lawsuit. I told them to leave." Gabriel's eyes widened. "They're already here? That's crazy." "It's going to be like this for a while," Maria said. "Linda warned me that Jonathan's case would draw a lot of attention. We just need to stay calm and not talk to them. Linda will handle everything." Gabriel nodded, but his expression was troubled. "I hate that they're treating this like some kind of entertainment. This is our life. It's not a show." Maria crossed the room and hugged Gabriel. "I know, but we can't let them scare us. We're doing the right thing, and remember that. This isn't about what people say or think. It's about getting justice." The next morning, Maria woke up early, the events of the previous day still fresh in her mind. She went through her usual routine, making breakfast and packing Gabriel's lunch. She could hear the sound of voices outside the building, the low hum of conversation that indicated a crowd. As she opened the door to leave, she saw a small group of reporters gathered on the sidewalk. They turned towards her, cameras clicking, microphones extended. "Maria, can you tell us why you decided to sue Jonathan Clark now after all these years?" one reporter asked. "Is it true that you were fired because of your relationship with him?" another shouted. Maria's pulse quickened, but she kept her head down, guiding Gabriel towards the bus stop. The questions kept coming, blending into a confusing blur of noise. She felt Gabriel's hand squeeze hers tightly, a silent show of support. At the bus stop, Gabriel turned to her. "Are you okay, Mom?" Maria nodded, though her heart was racing. "Yes, I'm fine. It's just overwhelming, that's all. But we'll get through this. Just remember, don't talk to anyone about the case, okay? Not even your friends." "I won't," Gabriel promised. "I just want to focus on school and pretend all this isn't happening." Maria watched as Gabriel boarded the bus, his shoulders hunched under the weight of the situation. She felt a pang of guilt, wondering if she had done the right thing by filing the lawsuit. But then she remembered Jonathan's indifference, the years of silence, and her resolve returned. This wasn't just about the past, it was about their future. Back at the apartment, Maria turned on the TV, flipping to the local news channel. As expected, Jonathan Clark's name was plastered across the screen, the lawsuit already making headlines. A reporter was standing outside Jonathan's office building, speaking to the camera. Sources close to Jonathan Clark say he denies all allegations and plans to fight the lawsuit in court, the reporter said. Clark, a well-known businessman and philanthropist, has yet to make a public statement. However, this case has already sparked public interest, with many questioning the private life of the man who has been a fixture in the city's elite circles for decades. Maria turned off the TV, her mind spinning. Jonathan was already trying to control the story, to paint himself as the victim. She knew this wouldn't be easy, but hearing his denials made her blood boil. He was acting like nothing had happened, like she and Gabriel were just obstacles to be brushed aside. The phone rang again, and Maria picked it up, half expecting another reporter. But it was Linda's voice that greeted her. "Maria, I've seen the news. How are you holding up?" "I'm okay," Maria said. "Reporters have been outside all morning, but I'm not talking to them." "Good," Linda said. "Stay strong. This is the reaction we expected. Jonathan's going to try to spin this in his favor, but we have the truth on our side. I've scheduled a press conference for tomorrow. I'll handle the questions, but I'd like you to be there just for support." Maria hesitated. The idea of standing in front of a crowd of journalists made her stomach churn. "Do I have to speak?" "No, just your presence will be enough," Linda assured her. "We need to show that you're not afraid, that we're confident in our case. Trust me, Maria, this is how we make him take us seriously." Maria nodded, even though the thought scared her. "Okay, I'll be there." After hanging up, Maria sat down at the kitchen table, her hands trembling slightly. She looked at the framed picture of her and Gabriel that sat on the counter, taken on his first day of high school. His smile was bright, full of hope. Maria felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just about facing Jonathan. It was about standing up for Gabriel. For all the years she had struggled alone, they deserved better. They deserved the truth. The sound of a knock on the door broke her thoughts. Maria stood up, bracing herself for more reporters. But when she looked through the peephole, she saw a familiar face. It was Rosa, a former maid who had worked with her at Jonathan's mansion. "Maria, it's me, Rosa," she called softly. "Can I come in?" Maria opened the door, relief washing over her. "Rosa, what are you doing here?" "I heard about the lawsuit," Rosa said, stepping inside. "I wanted to see how you were holding up, and I wanted to help." Maria felt a lump form in her throat. "You mean that?" Rosa nodded. "I remember how Jonathan treated you, how he fired you without warning. I've never forgotten it. If you need me to testify or anything, I will. You deserve justice, Maria." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes as she embraced Rosa. "Thank you. Your support means more than you know." As they sat down to talk, Maria felt a sense of hope. She wasn't alone in this fight. People were willing to stand by her, to tell the truth. And with Linda's help, they would make Jonathan face the consequences of his actions. The media storm might have been terrifying, but it also brought allies. And for the first time, Maria felt the scales tipping in her favor. Maria sat at her kitchen table, a stack of letters and documents spread out before her. The morning light filtered through the window, casting a soft glow over the papers. Linda had asked her to gather anything that might help their case. Letters she had sent to Jonathan, any correspondence about her firing, anything that could prove their relationship and the wrongful termination. Maria's fingers brushed over the edges of the old letters, memories rushing back with each touch. Gabriel walked into the kitchen carrying a notebook. "Mom, I've been writing down everything I remember about us, about the times you talked about my dad when I was little. I thought it might help." Maria smiled at her son, feeling a swell of pride. "Thank you, Gabriel. Every detail helps. Linda said we need to build the strongest case possible. We're going to make Jonathan face the truth." Gabriel nodded, setting the notebook down on the table. "I want to do everything I can. I want him to see that we won't be ignored anymore." The phone rang, interrupting their conversation. Maria reached for it, her heart quickening. "Hello? Maria, it's Linda." The lawyer's voice came through, steady and focused. I've been going over the initial evidence you provided, and it's a good start. We're on solid ground, but we need to gather more. I've set up a meeting with a few potential witnesses, people who worked with you and knew about your relationship with Jonathan. I'd like you to be there. Of course, Maria replied. When? This afternoon, Linda said. Come to my office around 2 o'clock. We'll go over everything together. Okay, I'll be there, Maria said, glancing at Gabriel, who was listening intently. After hanging up, Maria turned to her son. Linda's arranged a meeting with some of my old co-workers. They're going to help us with the case. Gabriel's eyes lit up with hope. That's great. Who are they? Rosa is one of them, Maria said. She's already said she's willing to testify. There might be others too. People who saw how Jonathan treated me. Gabriel's expression softened. I'm glad they're willing to help. It means they know you're telling the truth. Maria nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. We're not alone, Gabriel. People remember. They know what happened. And now they're going to speak up. That afternoon, Maria and Gabriel arrived at Linda's office. The small waiting area was already occupied by two women Maria recognized from her days at Jonathan's mansion. Rosa was there, along with another former maid named Carla, a kind woman with graying hair and a gentle smile. They both stood up as Maria entered, their faces lighting up with recognition. Maria, Rosa said, pulling her into a warm embrace. It's been so long. Carla nodded, her eyes kind. Uvamen. We've heard about what you're doing. We're here to help in any way we can. Maria felt a lump in her throat. Thank you, both of you. It means more than I can say. Linda emerged from her office, greeting everyone with a professional but welcoming demeanor. Thank you all for coming, she said. Please come inside. We have a lot to discuss. Inside Linda's office, they all took seats around a large wooden table. Linda took a moment to organize her notes before addressing the group. Maria, Rosa, Carla, thank you for being here. Your testimonies could make a significant impact on this case. Today, I'd like to hear from each of you about what you remember, any incidents that stand out, and any interactions you witnessed between Maria and Jonathan. Rosa spoke first, her voice steady. I remember when Maria and Jonathan started seeing each other. It wasn't exactly a secret among the staff. Jonathan would find excuses to be near her, talking with her longer than he needed to. One day I overheard them talking in the study. Jonathan sounded angry. He was saying something about keeping things quiet and not letting anyone find out. I didn't hear all of it, but Maria looked upset when she came out. Linda nodded, jotting down notes. And you, Carla? Carla leaned forward slightly, her expression thoughtful. I remember the day Maria was fired. It was sudden, out of the blue. One day she was working with us, and the next she was gone. When I asked about it, the head housekeeper just said that Mr. Clark had decided Maria's services were no longer needed. It didn't make sense because Maria was one of the best workers there. We all knew she was pregnant, and some of us suspected that Mr. Clark was the father, but no one dared to say anything. Maria felt a wave of gratitude toward the women sitting with her. They had seen more than she realized, understood more than she had given them credit for. Thank you, Linda said, looking up from her notes. Your testimonies will be crucial. It establishes a pattern of behavior. Jonathan's relationship with Maria, his reaction to the pregnancy, and the wrongful termination. We'll need both of you to testify in court when the time comes. Rosa and Carla exchanged glances, then nodded in unison. We'll do it, Rosa said. Maria deserves justice, and so does Gabriel. Linda turned her attention back to Maria. I've also reached out to a few former employees of Jonathan's company. We need to establish that his refusal to acknowledge Gabriel was not just a personal decision, but one that had significant consequences. The more we can show the impact of his actions, the stronger our case will be. Maria nodded. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. Linda smiled slightly. Good. We're going to fight this, Maria, and we're going to win. As Maria and Gabriel left Linda's office, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pavement. The streets were busy with people going about their lives, unaware of the battle Maria was preparing to fight. Gabriel walked beside her, his steps purposeful. I feel better after meeting with them, Gabriel said. It's good to know people are on our side. Maria glanced at her son, his face set with determination. Yes, it is. We're not alone in this, Gabriel. We have support, and we have the truth. Gabriel looked thoughtful for a moment. Do you think Jonathan knows yet? About the witnesses, I mean. Maria considered the question. If he doesn't, he will soon. Linda said that once we start gathering testimonies, Jonathan's legal team will be notified. They'll know we're building a strong case. I wonder how he'll react, Gabriel said quietly. Do you think he'll try to stop them from testifying? Maria shook her head. I don't know. But whatever he tries, we have to be ready. We can't let him intimidate us. Linda's right. We have the truth on our side. As they walked home, Maria felt a sense of calm determination settle over her. She had spent so many years avoiding this fight, afraid of what it might bring. But now, with Gabriel beside her and the support of people like Rosa and Carla, she felt stronger than ever. They were preparing for a battle, but they weren't going into it unarmed. They had witnesses, evidence, and a fierce desire for justice. Back in their apartment, Maria and Gabriel sat down together at the kitchen table. Maria began organizing the letters and documents into a neat pile, preparing for the days ahead. Gabriel picked up his notebook, adding more notes, more memories. "We're going to make him see us," Gabriel said, his voice firm. "We're going to make him face what he did." Maria looked at her son, her heart swelling with pride. "Yes, we are. No more hiding, no more silence." As the afternoon light faded, they continued their work, side by side, preparing for the battle ahead. The fear that had once held Maria back was now a distant memory. In its place was a sense of purpose, a resolve that would not be shaken. For the first time in a long time, Maria felt like they were moving forward, not just surviving, but fighting for the future they deserved. Maria stood at the entrance of the courthouse, the imposing stone building stretching up towards the gray sky. She clutched her purse tightly, trying to steady her nerves. Gabriel stood beside her, his face set with determination. He glanced at her and gave a small, reassuring nod. "We're ready for this, Mom," Gabriel said, his voice steady. Maria nodded, trying to draw strength from his confidence. "Yes, we are. We've come too far to back down now." They walked through the courthouse doors, passing through security and into the bustling hallway. The sound of voices and footsteps echoed off the marble walls. Reporters were already gathered near the entrance of the courtroom, cameras at the ready. Maria kept her head down, avoiding eye contact. She had seen her face on the news, headlines screaming about the scandal involving Jonathan Clark, but she had refused to give any interviews. Linda's advice had been clear: let the courtroom do the talking. Linda Parks was waiting for them outside the courtroom, looking professional and confident in a tailored suit. She greeted Maria and Gabriel with a warm smile. "How are you both feeling?" "Nervous," Maria admitted, "but ready," Linda nodded. "That's normal. Just remember, we have a strong case. Trust the process and answer the questions honestly. The truth is on our side." Maria took a deep breath. "I'm ready." Linda led them into the courtroom, where the buzz of conversation immediately quieted. Jonathan Clark was already seated at the defendant's table, looking calm and composed in a dark suit. His lawyer, a tall man with a sharp expression, whispered something in his ear. Jonathan glanced briefly at Maria, his face unreadable. Maria's heart pounded in her chest, but she held her head high as she took her seat next to Linda. Gabriel sat beside her, his presence a steadying force. The courtroom filled with people, journalists scribbling notes, and spectators watching with keen interest. The air was thick with tension. A gavel banged, and everyone stood as Judge Sarah Whitman entered the room. She was a stern woman in her 60s, known for her no-nonsense approach and reputation for fairness. She took her seat, adjusted her glasses, and looked out over the courtroom. "This court is now in session," Judge Whitman announced. "We are here to hear the case of Maria Lopez versus Jonathan Clark regarding wrongful termination and child support. Let us proceed." Linda stood and began her opening statement, her voice clear and confident. "Your Honor, today we are here to seek justice for my client, Maria Lopez, and her son Gabriel. 16 years ago, Mr. Clark engaged in a relationship with Ms. Lopez, which resulted in the birth of their son. When Ms. Lopez informed Mr. Clark of her pregnancy, he terminated her employment without cause, without severance, and without acknowledgement of his responsibility. For years, Ms. Lopez struggled to raise Gabriel on her own, with no support from Mr. Clark, who refused all contact. We will show that Mr. Clark not only neglected his legal responsibilities, but also sought to erase any evidence of his actions. It is time for accountability." Jonathan's lawyer, Mr. Simmons, stood to give his opening statement. "Your Honor, Mr. Clark denies the allegations made by Ms. Lopez. This case is a clear attempt to extort money from a respected businessman based on a relationship that ended many years ago. Mr. Clark has no recollection of any affair with Ms. Lopez and believes that this lawsuit is a fabrication intended to damage his reputation and extract financial gain. We will present evidence to show that Ms. Lopez's claims are unfounded and motivated by personal greed." Maria's hands tightened into fists in her lap. She could feel Gabriel tense beside her. Linda placed a reassuring hand on Maria's arm before calling her to the stand. Maria walked to the witness stand, every step feeling like a mile. She took a seat, swore to tell the truth, and faced the courtroom. Linda approached, her expression calm and encouraging. "Maria, can you please tell the court how you met Jonathan Clark?" Linda asked. Maria took a breath and began. I started working for Jonathan Clark as a maid about 17 years ago. I worked in his mansion, along with other household staff. At first, our relationship was professional, but after a few months, it became personal. We started seeing each other in secret. And what happened when you found out you were pregnant? Linda prompted. Maria's voice wavered slightly, but she pressed on. I told Jonathan. I thought he would be happy, or at least willing to support me, but he got angry. He said it would ruin everything, his family, his reputation. He offered me money to leave quietly. When I refused, he fired me the next day. No severance, no support, nothing. Just a letter saying my services were no longer needed. Linda nodded, turning to face the courtroom. And did you try to reach out to Mr. Clark after your termination? Yes, Maria said. I wrote him letters, called his office, but he never responded. He ignored me, and he ignored Gabriel. Linda pulled out a stack of letters, showing them to the court. These are copies of the letters Maria sent to Mr. Clark. They detail her attempts to seek help and support. Your Honor, I would like these entered into evidence. Judge Whitman nodded. Accepted. Linda turned back to Maria. Thank you, Maria. No further questions. Mr. Simmons stood up, his expression sharp. Ms. Lopez, you claim to have had a relationship with Mr. Clark, but where is the evidence? Isn't it true that you have no photographs, no gifts, no evidence of this so-called affair? Maria's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. The letters are evidence, and there are witnesses. People who worked in the mansion, who saw us together. They knew. People gossip, Ms. Lopez, Simmons said dismissively. That doesn't prove anything. Isn't it true that you're only bringing this lawsuit now because you need money? Because you're trying to take advantage of Mr. Clark's success? No, Maria said firmly. This isn't about money. It's about justice. It's about my son knowing the truth and having the support he deserves. Simmons smirked. No further questions, Your Honor. Maria stepped down from the stand, feeling both drained and defiant. Gabriel squeezed her hand as she sat down. You did great, Mom, he whispered. Next, Linda called Rosa to the stand. Rosa's testimony was calm and clear, describing the relationship between Maria and Jonathan that she had witnessed. She spoke of the day Maria was fired, the suddenness of it, and the way Jonathan had acted towards Maria in the weeks leading up to it. Carla testified as well, confirming the atmosphere in the mansion, the rumors, in the sense that something was wrong when Maria was dismissed without warning. Linda introduced more evidence, pay stubs showing Maria's employment, letters she had sent to Jonathan, and testimonies from other staff members who corroborated her story. Linda's strategy was clear, meticulous, building a picture of Maria's life before and after Jonathan's rejection. As the day wore on, Jonathan took the stand. His demeanor was calm, confident. He answered Linda's questions with measured responses, denying any memory of a relationship with Maria. I had many employees, Jonathan said. I don't recall anything more than a professional relationship with Ms. Lopez. If she was terminated, it was for reasons related to her work, not because of any personal involvement. Linda's questions grew more pointed. Mr. Clark, can you explain why Maria's termination came so suddenly after she informed you of her pregnancy? I can't speak to the timing, Jonathan replied smoothly. Any decisions about staffing were made by my management team, based on performance evaluations and the needs of the household. Did you or did you not receive letters from Ms. Lopez asking for support? Linda pressed. Jonathan shrugged. I received many letters, Ms. Parks. I can't keep track of all of them. If she sent something, it must have been handled by my office staff. Linda's jaw tightened, but she kept her tone even. No further questions, Your Honor. As Jonathan left the stand, Maria felt anger boiling inside her. His calm denials, his refusal to acknowledge her or Gabriel, felt like another betrayal. She glanced at Gabriel, who was staring at Jonathan, his eyes filled with hurt and anger. The courtroom proceedings continued, each side presenting its case, calling witnesses, introducing evidence. The tension built, filling the room with a sense of anticipation. Maria watched, her heart aching each time Jonathan's lawyer tried to twist the truth, to paint her as a liar, a gold digger. But Linda's unwavering support, the solid testimonies of Rosa and Carla, and the evidence they had presented gave her hope. Finally, the closing arguments began. Linda stood addressing the court with quiet strength. This case is not about wealth or reputation. It's about a mother's fight for justice, a son's right to know his father, and a man's refusal to take responsibility for his actions. Maria Lopez did not ask for this fight, but she has faced it with courage and integrity. The evidence is clear. The witnesses are credible. It is time for Mr. Clark to be held accountable. Mr. Simmons followed, his tone smooth and dismissive. Ladies and gentlemen of the court, this case is a fabrication. an attempt to exploit a successful businessman for financial gain. There is no concrete evidence of any wrongdoing on Mr. Clark's part. We ask you to see this lawsuit for what it is, a baseless claim driven by greed. As the lawyers finished their arguments, the judge called a recess. Maria felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. The day had been long and grueling, but they had stood their ground. She glanced at Gabriel, who looked at her with a mixture of hope and fear. "We did our best, Mom," Gabriel said quietly. "Whatever happens, we did everything we could." Maria nodded, reaching for his hand. "Yes, we did. Now, we wait." As they left the courtroom, reporters swarmed around them, cameras flashing, questions flying. Maria kept her head down, holding Gabriel's hand tightly. They pushed through the crowd, making their way to the exit. Outside, the afternoon sun was bright, a stark contrast to the tension inside. Maria took a deep breath, feeling the warmth on her face. The battle was far from over, but she knew one thing for certain. They had faced Jonathan Clark in that courtroom, and they hadn't backed down. No matter the outcome, they had fought for the truth, and that was a victory in itself. The next morning, Maria sat at her kitchen table, staring at the phone, her fingers tapping nervously against the wood. The previous day's court proceedings were still vivid in her mind, every moment replaying like a scene in a movie. She had faced Jonathan, listened to his denials, and seen the way his lawyer tried to discredit her. But she had also heard the strong, clear voices of Rosa and Carla standing up for the truth. Now, the trial was set to continue, and today would bring Gabriel's turn on the stand. "Mom, are you okay?" Gabriel's voice broke through her thoughts. He stood in the doorway, his face filled with concern. Maria managed a small smile. "Just thinking, sweetheart. Today is going to be tough, but I know you'll do great." Gabriel nodded, but Maria could see the tension in his eyes. "I've been thinking about what I want to say. I just hope I remember everything." "You will," Maria said, reaching out to squeeze his hand. "Just speak from your heart. Tell them the truth about what it's been like growing up without a father. They need to hear your side." Gabriel nodded again, his expression more determined. "I will." In the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Reporters filled the back rows, their notepads and cameras at the ready. Jonathan sat at his table, his lawyer whispering in his ear, a frown etched on his face. Maria and Gabriel Whale sat beside Linda, who was reviewing her notes one last time. Judge Whitman entered, and everyone rose. The gavel banged, and the proceedings resumed. Linda stood, calling Gabriel to the stand. Maria's heart pounded as her son walked to the front of the room, his back straight, his face composed. He took the oath, his voice steady, then sat down, looking directly at Linda. "Gabriel," Linda began, her voice gentle, "can you tell the court what it's been like growing up without knowing your father?" Gabriel took a deep breath. "It's been hard. I've always wondered why he didn't want me. When I was younger, I asked my mom about him all the time. She told me he was gone, that he didn't want anything to do with us. I didn't understand why. I thought maybe I'd done something wrong, or that there was something wrong with me." Maria felt tears prick at her eyes, hearing the pain in Gabriel's voice. She had never wanted him to feel like he was unwanted, but the truth had been impossible to hide. Gabriel continued, his voice stronger now. "As I got older, I realized it wasn't about me. It was about him, about his choices, his mistakes. But it still hurt. Every time I saw other kids with their dads, I wondered what it would be like to have that, to have someone who was there for me, who cared about me, someone who was supposed to love me because they were my father." Linda nodded, her expression encouraging. "And how did it feel when you found out that Jonathan Clark is your father?" Gabriel's jaw tightened. "I felt angry. Angry that he knew about me and did nothing. Angry that he pretended I didn't exist just because it was easier for him. I felt like my whole life he'd been ignoring me, like I was just a problem he didn't want to deal with." "And what do you want from this case, Gabriel?" Linda asked. "Why did you encourage your mother to file this lawsuit?" "I want him to take responsibility," Gabriel said firmly. "I want him to admit what he did, to acknowledge me. This isn't just about money. It's about him owning up to his actions and understanding that he can't just walk away from his responsibilities. I want him to know that he can't treat people like they don't matter." Linda smiled gently. "Thank you, Gabriel. No further questions." As Gabriel finished his testimony, Maria's heart swelled with pride. Her son had spoken with honesty and strength, laying bare the pain and anger he had carried for so long. She glanced at Jonathan, who was watching Gabriel with a guarded expression. Mr. Simmons stood up, approaching Gabriel with a calculated look. "Gabriel, you've mentioned that you want acknowledgement from Mr. Clark. But isn't it true that you've been living a good life with your mother? She's provided for you, cared for you. Why bring this lawsuit now, after so many years?" Gabriel looked at Simmons, his gaze unwavering. "My mom has done everything for me. She's worked hard, taken care of me, given me everything she could, but that doesn't change the fact that Jonathan Clark is my father, and he abandoned us. He left my mom to struggle on her own while he continued his life as if we didn't exist. It's not fair, and it's not right. Simmons smirked slightly. So this is about fairness, is it? Or is it about money? Isn't it true that your mother could have asked for child support years ago, but she didn't? Gabriel's face flushed with anger. She didn't because she didn't want to cause trouble. She didn't want to make things worse. But I'm the one who asked her to file this lawsuit because I want him to be held accountable. It's not about money. It's about doing what's right. No further questions, Simmons said dismissively, turning back to his table. Gabriel stepped down from the stand, walking back to Maria. She reached out and hugged him tightly, whispering, "You did great, Gabriel. I'm so proud of you." After Gabriel's testimony, Linda called a series of other witnesses, former staff members from Jonathan's mansion, business associates who had seen Jonathan's interactions with Maria, and experts who testified about the psychological and emotional impact of a father's absence on a child's development. Each piece of testimony added to the picture Linda was painting, a picture of a man who had chosen to ignore his responsibilities, to silence the people who reminded him of his mistakes. Jonathan's lawyer, Simmons, continued his strategy of casting doubt on the motives of Maria and Gabriel. He questioned witnesses about their memories, their possible biases, and tried to suggest that Maria's lawsuit was nothing more than a ploy for money. But Linda's careful preparation and the consistency of the testimonies weakened Simmons's arguments. Finally, Linda called Jonathan back to the stand for cross-examination. The room grew still as Jonathan took his place, his face impassive. Linda approached him, her voice calm but firm. "Mr. Clark, you've denied any recollection of a relationship with Maria Lopez, but multiple witnesses have testified to seeing you with her, to knowing about your affair. How do you respond to that?" Jonathan shifted slightly, his expression tightening. "People talk, they gossip. That doesn't mean it's true." "And what about the letters?" Linda pressed. "Letters that Maria sent you, asking for help, asking for support. Are you saying you never received them?" Jonathan shrugged. "I receive a lot of mail. I don't remember seeing any letters from Ms. Lopez." Linda's voice grew firmer. "Isn't it true, Mr. Clark, that you chose to ignore Maria and Gabriel because acknowledging them would have jeopardized your image, your reputation as a family man, and a successful businessman?" Jonathan's eyes narrowed. "That's not true. I have always conducted myself with integrity." Linda didn't back down. "Then why fire Maria without cause? Why refuse to respond to her attempts to reach out? Why pretend she and Gabriel don't exist?" Jonathan's jaw tightened. "I made decisions based on what was best for my family and my business. Ms. Lopez was terminated due to performance issues, nothing more." Linda took a step closer. "You're saying that your actions were justified? That ignoring your own child, leaving him to grow up without a father, was the right thing to do?" Jonathan's face remained stony. "I did what I thought was best." Linda's voice softened, but her words were sharp. "Best for whom, Mr. Clark? Because it certainly wasn't best for Maria or Gabriel." "No further questions, Your Honor." As Jonathan left the stand, Maria felt a wave of mixed emotions. His refusal to admit the truth, his cold indifference, cut deep, but she also felt a sense of satisfaction. Linda had exposed the cracks in his armor, showing the court his true nature. The day's proceedings drew to a close, and Judge Whitman called for a recess. Maria and Gabriel stood, gathering their things. As they turned to leave, Maria noticed Jonathan's wife, Samantha, sitting quietly in the back of the courtroom. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Maria saw a flicker of something in Samantha's eyes. Confusion, maybe even hurt. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around them, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. Maria held Gabriel's hand tightly, guiding him through the crowd. Questions flew at them, voices clamoring for a statement. "Maria, how do you feel after today's testimony?" "Gabriel, what do you hope will come from this trial? Do you believe Jonathan Clark will be held accountable?" Maria kept her head down, repeating Linda's advice in her mind. No comment. Gabriel stayed close to her side, his face set with determination. They pushed through the throng of reporters, making their way to the car. As they drove away, Maria glanced at Gabriel. "You were incredible today. I know how hard it was, but you stood up there and spoke your truth." Gabriel looked out the window, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I just want him to admit what he did. I want him to see that he can't just pretend we don't matter." Maria reached over, squeezing his shoulder. "We're showing him that, Gabriel. Every day in that courtroom, we're showing him." Gabriel nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "We're going to make him see us, Mom. We're going to make him see." As they drove through the city, Maria felt a sense of resolve. They had exposed the truth, brought it out into the open for everyone to see. Whatever the final outcome, they had fought with courage and honesty. And in that, they had already won a victory. The courtroom was buzzing with anticipation. Maria sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Gabriel sat next to her, his eyes focused on the front of the room. Linda Parks was beside them, sorting through her notes, her expression calm but serious. Across the room, Jonathan Clark sat with his lawyer, Mr. Simmons, both looking stoic and unreadable. Maria's heart pounded in her chest. Today was the day they would hear the verdict. Weeks of tension, arguments, and raw emotions had led to this moment. She could feel the weight of the past pressing down on her, mingling with the hopes for the future. Judge Sarah Whitman entered the courtroom, and the noise immediately died down. Everyone rose as she took her seat at the bench. The gavel came down with a sharp crack, signaling the start of the session. Maria took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She felt Gabriel's hand squeeze hers, a silent reminder that they were in this together. This court has reached a decision in the case of Maria Lopez versus Jonathan Clark, Judge Whitman began, her voice clear and authoritative. After reviewing the testimonies, evidence, and arguments presented by both parties, I have reached a conclusion. Maria's heart seemed to stop. She held her breath, her eyes fixed on the judge's face. Regarding the matter of wrongful termination, Judge Whitman continued, it has been established that Maria Lopez was terminated from her position without just cause, following her disclosure of pregnancy. The testimony from former employees, combined with the lack of documentation supporting performance issues, leads me to conclude that Ms. Lopez's termination was directly related to her personal relationship with Mr. Clark and her pregnancy. Maria felt a surge of relief at the judge's words. It was a small victory, but an important one. She glanced at Gabriel, who gave her a small, hopeful smile. As for the claim of child support, Judge Whitman said, her tone turning more serious, the evidence presented shows that Mr. Clark was aware of Ms. Lopez's pregnancy and that he failed to provide any support for his child, Gabriel Lopez. Testimonies and letters indicate Mr. Clark's deliberate avoidance of responsibility. Jonathan's face remained impassive, but Maria noticed a slight tightening around his mouth. Simmons, his lawyer, shifted in his seat. It is the ruling of this court, Judge Whitman declared, that Jonathan Clark is indeed the father of Gabriel Lopez. Mr. Clark is hereby ordered to provide child support payments retroactively from the date of Gabriel's birth, in addition to ongoing monthly payments until Gabriel reaches the age of 18. Furthermore, compensation for wrongful termination will be awarded to Maria Lopez. A collective gasp went through the courtroom. Maria felt tears spring to her eyes, a mixture of relief and joy flooding her. She turned to Gabriel, who was grinning, his eyes shining with emotion. "Mom, we did it," Gabriel whispered. His voice choked. Maria nodded, unable to speak, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment. They had won. After all the years of silence, struggle, and pain, they had been heard. Justice had been served. Judge Whitman's voice cut through the emotional wave. "I hope this verdict brings some measure of resolution to both parties. Mr. Clark, it is my sincere hope that you will fulfill your obligations with the seriousness they deserve. Court is adjourned." The gavel came down again, and the room erupted into noise. Reporters rushed forward, cameras flashed, and people began to chatter. Maria felt herself being pulled into a hug by Linda, who was beaming with pride. "You did it, Maria," Linda said. "You stood up and you won. I'm so proud of you." "Thank you, Linda," Maria managed to say, her voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you." Gabriel turned to Linda, his eyes bright. "Thank you for believing in us." Linda nodded, her expression softening. "You both showed incredible strength. This is your victory." As the room buzzed around them, Maria noticed Jonathan standing off to the side, speaking quietly with his lawyer. His face was pale, his expression tense. Samantha, his wife, stood near him, her arms crossed, looking at him with a mixture of anger and disappointment. Their eyes met briefly, and Maria saw a flash of regret in Jonathan's gaze. She wondered what he was feeling, anger, shame, or something else entirely. Jonathan turned away, moving towards the exit with Samantha, the two of them walking side by side but not touching. Maria watched them go, a sense of closure settling over her. Jonathan's life would never be the same, just as hers had been changed all those years ago. Now the truth was out in the open, and he could no longer hide behind his reputation or wealth. Linda guided Maria and Gabriel out of the courtroom, shielding them from the throng of reporters. "Let's get you outside," she said. "We'll make a brief statement, then head home." Outside, the courthouse steps were packed with journalists and onlookers. Cameras flashed and microphones were thrust towards them. Linda stepped forward, raising her hand for silence. Today's verdict is a victory for justice, Linda announced. Maria Lopez and Gabriel Lopez have shown incredible courage in standing up for their rights. This case is a reminder that no matter how powerful or wealthy one may be, the truth will prevail. Maria and Gabriel are looking forward to moving on with their lives, knowing that they have been heard. Linda turned to Maria, giving her a nod. Maria stepped up to the microphones, her voice steady despite the sea of faces before her. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's supported us. This has been a long journey, but we never gave up. I'm grateful for my son, Gabriel, for his strength and for everyone who stood by us. This isn't just a victory for us. It's a message that everyone deserves justice, no matter who they are. The reporters erupted into more questions, but Linda guided Maria and Gabriel down the steps towards the car waiting for them. They climbed inside, the door shutting out the noise. As the car pulled away, Maria leaned back in her seat, letting out a long breath. Gabriel turned to her, his expression one of quiet joy. It's over, Mom. We did it. Maria smiled, a sense of peace washing over her. Yes, we did. We finally did. Back at their apartment, Maria and Gabriel sat down together at the kitchen table, the same place where they had first talked about finding Jonathan. The sunlight streamed in through the window, casting a warm glow over the room. Maria felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. What now? Gabriel asked, his voice curious. Maria thought for a moment. Now we move forward. We use the support to make our lives better. We focus on your education, on our future. We've been through so much, but this is a new beginning. Gabriel nodded, his face thoughtful. Do you think he'll ever try to be part of my life? Maria paused, considering her answer. I don't know, Gabriel. That's something only Jonathan can decide, but no matter what, you know who you are. You know your worth, and you have a family that loves you. Gabriel smiled. You're right, Mom. We don't need him to be happy. We've got each other. Maria reached out, pulling Gabriel into a hug. Yes, we do, and that's more than enough. As they sat together, Maria felt a sense of hope for the future. They had faced the past, confronted their fears, and stood up for what was right. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew they could handle them. They had found their strength, and nothing could take that away. For the first time in a long while, Maria felt truly at peace. The truth had been revealed, and justice had been served. Now it was time to live the life they had fought so hard to reclaim. Weeks after the verdict, Maria felt the weight of years of struggle lifting. With the child support payments coming in, she and Gabriel could finally plan for a better future. Maria paid off debts and began looking into enrolling Gabriel in a better school. They talked about Crestwood High, known for its strong science program and sports teams, and Gabriel expressed excitement at the possibility of attending. One morning, Rosa visited, bringing a plant as a housewarming gift for their new life. Over coffee, they talked about the trial and the impact it had on Jonathan Clark's reputation. Rosa praised Maria's courage, saying her actions gave hope to others. Maria admitted she had been scared, but felt it was the right thing to do for Gabriel. The friends shared a sense of accomplishment, knowing they had stood up for justice. Later, while watching a movie, Gabriel asked if Jonathan might try to be part of their lives now. Maria didn't know the answer, but reassured Gabriel that they would handle whatever came together. Gabriel acknowledged that having Jonathan wasn't necessary for their happiness. They had each other, and that was enough. The next morning, Maria felt energized by the promise of a fresh start. She discussed with Gabriel their plans to enroll him in the new school and explore interests, like starting a garden. On a walk through the neighborhood, Maria found herself at the community center, where a flyer for an art class caught her eye. Inspired, she decided to pursue something she had once loved but set aside. Back home, Maria shared her plans with Gabriel, who suggested they also take a cooking class together. The idea of learning new skills and hobbies made both of them feel excited about the future. That night, as Maria lay in bed, she reflected on their journey. They had faced so much adversity but had come out stronger and closer. They were no longer defined by past struggles, but were looking ahead with hope. As sleep took over, Maria felt grateful for the love and strength that now defined their lives, knowing that a bright and fulfilling future awaited them.